As U.S. President-elect Donald Trump prepares to take the wheel in Washington, D.C., Canada's auto sector is bracing for a rough ride. While Mexico has been Trump's target so far, there are growing concerns that Canada could be next in his crosshairs. Earlier this week, Ontario's Economic Development Minister had a message for Mr. Trump about the importance of preserving the trade relationship between Canada and the United States. Brad Duguid joins us from Las Vegas. Good to see you, sir. Thanks for joining us. We'll get straight to it here. Now, we know that Mr. Trump has been targeting Mexico. Explain why Ontario is not Mexico in terms of its relationship with the U.S. Describe that relationship and its importance, and why any trade barriers imposed by the U.S. would be counterproductive.
Well, the fact is, Mark, Ontario really is not a threat to American jobs. We've seen $1.5 billion of investment in our auto sector over the last number of months, which is great news for Ontario workers. But really, that's about sustaining the work that we have and the work that we do. In some ways, we have a lot in common with the American auto market in that we've actually seen over the last 10 years a diminishing of our market share in auto production, where Mexico's seen their market share go up. So we really don't see ourselves as a threat. I think it's important, though, to ensure that the new administration is aware of that.
Now, you've been talking to people in the auto sector. What are they telling you, and are they concerned about what Mr. Trump might impose in terms of policy?
Well, Mark, I think we have to be alive to the uncertainty that's in place right now with regard to the president-elect and how he's going to implement his policies. At the same time, the U.S. sells over 840,000 vehicles in Canada. It's $59 billion of revenue that flow to American companies as a result of those exports to Canada. It's an important market for them as well. And I believe Mr. Trump is a businessman, and he's somebody who understands rate of return. There's a significant rate of return to a good trade relationship between Canada and the U.S., Ontario, Michigan, and Ohio. That return is equally shared, and I believe the president-elect will recognize that.
This week we saw Ford Motor cancel a plan to build a plant in Mexico, and they're going to invest in Michigan instead. You described that as a remarkable occurrence. Why do you think it was remarkable, and do you foresee anything similar happening in Ontario?
Well, I don't foresee, again, there's some uncertainty here, so we don't really know yet, but I don't foresee Ontario losing jobs to the U.S. as a result of this. In many ways, I think we're in a similar situation to the U.S. We have lost jobs in the past to Mexico, and in many ways, our sector is in very much the same kind of position as the U.S. sector. So it's something that I think we can be seen as an ally when it comes to renegotiating NAFTA, and I think our federal government has placed themselves in that position to be proactive in working with the president-elect in these particular areas.
So do you think, Minister, that as Mr. Trump focuses on Mexico and China, that Canada could actually be a beneficiary?
I think it's too soon to tell. It's possible, but it's too soon to tell. I think what we want to do is make sure that the administration is aware of the important synergies that exist, in particular with those Great Lakes states that help get the new president elected. In Ontario, the average vehicle built in Ontario or Michigan crosses the border in terms of part distribution about 7 times. That's a very collaborative relationship that the president-elect would not want to interrupt. In fact, if the president wants to meet his goal of creating jobs in those states, as he said he does, he's going to have to make sure the trade relationship with Ontario and the rest of Canada remains very strong.
And just lastly, sir, are some Ontario companies involved in the auto sector, are they actively looking around for other kinds of business in other parts of the world, just as a precaution?
Well, if they're not, they should be, and they should always be looking for other business around the world. In fact, that's something we've worked very hard on over the last number of years, and this is part of our economic development strategy, is to look to markets like China, India, and other emerging markets to ensure that we are diversified in our trade. We currently, about 80% of our trade continues to go to the U.S. and our exports continue to go to the U.S. That's fine and good, but we want to make sure we've got other trading partners. Our trade relationship with Europe should be on the increase as well with the emerging CETA agreement. All of that presents international opportunities for Ontario businesses. We want to encourage Ontario businesses to look to the U.S. markets, but also look abroad as well. I think that's only healthy, and I think that's a smart way to move forward in the future.